Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Lunch and Learn session on the Green Care Network. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nigel Boulder. I'm the convener of the network. And this event today, as some of you will know, is part of a 2-week Green Care Festival that we've been running over Norfolk. We're just coming to the end of the first week. And if you're interested in finding out more about what's going on in the forthcoming 7-8 days, just go to our website, ngcn.uk, and there's a program there with links through to all that's going on. And that includes a couple more online lunch and learn sessions next week, which you may be interested in. As we said, we are recording this and it will go on our YouTube channel when it's ready. Can I ask you if you keep yourselves on mute unless you're speaking, because we do sometimes get stray animals, children, whoever it is in the background making noises, and that we don't want that to interrupt the session. And also, if you've got any questions that occurs to you as we go along, you can either put those in the chat and I'll try and pick those up later when we get time for discussion and questions, or you can just hold on until the end when hopefully just raising your hand either virtually or on screen, you get your chance to ask a question. That's all by way of admin. I'd like to welcome Tabitha Nolan from FenZen, who's going to give us the session today about how to get people to connect with nature without really realising it, which I think is a fascinating topic. And over to you, Tabitha. Would you like me to start sharing my screen?
Yes, please. Yeah, we can jump straight into it.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you for having me.
Is that okay? Can everybody see that?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm Tabitha Nolan from FenZen, which is a community interest company and a social enterprise. And yeah, I'll be giving a talk on my experience on how to get people to engage with nature without realising. We'll jump on to the next one.
Excuse me. Where are we? Sorry about this.
That's all right. That's a photograph there of us doing a basket making course a couple of weeks ago, just for interest.
Trying to get back to full screen. Hang on a second.
That's all right. So I know what's on the next one anyway, so I'll start talking. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to introduce myself, tell you who I am and tell you what I do. And then we're going to look at what is connection and what is engagement and how to do it. Well remembered. Yeah, so that's fine. We can go on to the next one. So I've asked to do this talk by Nigel, who's as part of the Norfolk Green Care Festival. And I'll start by asking you a random question, which we'll be coming back to later. What does it feel like to connect? So if you can kind of think about that as we go through the slides and the presentation, just think about what does it feel like to actually connect with someone or something. So who am I? I'm an artist. I'm a sitter under a tree. I'm a friend. I'm a space holder. I'm a mother of 5, and a hedge botherer. I'm many things. So that always, whenever I'm asked who am I, that changes from day to day. But that's who I feel like today. There's a photograph of me by my sign, by my gate. My business, as I said, is FenZen, which is a nature-based education, events and venue hire. Where we do nature, nurture, natter. And then that's a photograph of me with some chard that we grew, because we also have a organic market garden on site. So our site is an 8-acre small holding in the village of Denver in Norfolk. And we've only had it for 4 years, so we're still building up. I don't think I'm an expert on any of this. It's just our journey so far. And yeah, it's our first and foremost idea for the business was to help people to connect with nature on lots of different levels. And that was because I suffered from a loss. I was suffering from grief, and I found that nature connection really helped me to kind of move through that and help my sons. I've got 3 sons who lost their dad, and by myself connecting with nature and them connecting with nature, that kind of helped us to kind of navigate the grief and trauma involved in that. So why do we bother to connect with nature? Well-being is the main thing. Obviously, working with clients and working with families, all sorts of, we work where we do in Fenzen from 0 up to people in their 90s. And we find, as there's a lot of documentation on how good it is for people, for their personal well-being, their body health, their mental health, their social health, and for the community as a whole to connect with nature. Mental health in particular is one that's been picked up on a lot lately, about how if you're out in nature and you spend time in nature, that does help with how you feel about yourself inside your head. But it's easier said than done. How do you get people, for example, living in high-rise flats to connect with nature? It's a bit of a buzzword as well, isn't it? People are like, oh, connect with nature. How do we actually do that? I think if people know the reason why they're doing it, that helps as well. But I think a lot of people are put off. Obviously I advertise a lot of my events and things, and a lot, the majority of people would probably look at them and think, oh, I'm not interested in engaging with nature. So the whole point of my talk is to kind of, how do we get people to engage with nature without actually realizing that they're engaging with nature? And so that's what I'm going to kind of get to the crux of that in a bit. But yeah, the why is, it's about the holistic look at people's lives and how it helps in so many different areas of a person's life and the community as a whole. If we're all engaging with nature, hopefully together, that just brings on a whole loop of engagement with everybody, all kind of understanding how each other works. And nature, I mean, we are cavemen dressed up in clothes, aren't we? So this is where our human bodies need to be in nature. So it's a fundamental primitive instinct to want to be in nature. It's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. The photographs is my daughter on the left is sharing hot chocolate at one of our events with 2 little boys that have come. And then the other one is my other daughter, Bambi. She's having a bath in front of the campfire. When we stay on the land, we've got a little campsite there that we stay on, and that's how we bath. Next one. So in a few small steps, you can introduce nature to people by building on their existing interests. For example, if someone enjoys gardening, you could introduce them to the idea of growing native plants that attract birds and other wildlife. If someone enjoys cooking, you could suggest growing herbs and vegetables in a pot on a balcony. If someone likes maths, statistics, order, encourage them to begin to keep a simple list or detailed sightings diary. You can also encourage people to take a walk in a local park, or even just take a few moments each day to observe the wildlife in their own, I missed off the words, backyard. I've only just thrown this together this morning. Obviously, a lot of that is common sense. Walking in the park, it's step 1, isn't it, of nature connection. But I think there's the way that you would kind of try and sell that is to put in there something along the lines of human connection as well. Some people need their hands holding if they're going to connect with nature. They don't really know what to do. We do at certain events on our land, we do things called sit spots, where people go and sit in nature, and we give them something to think about, or a journal to write in. But they do need hand holding. This doesn't just come naturally to people. People come back and say, well, I just sat in nature and nothing happened. this nature engagement and nature connection are two separate things. They do have similarities, but engaging with nature is probably the first step, where you hold people's hand, not literally, but hold people's hand, and they sit in nature. But the actual connection comes later, and you have to get people to kind of engage first. So that's the first step. And those things. I mean, the one with maths, statistics, and order is, I think, it's a really good one, because a lot of people who are quite bookish, or they like to be with IT or in front of a computer, that sort of thing, they wouldn't think about going outside. I am obviously generalizing, but if you said to them, okay, we're going to start keeping a list of the animals that you see, so a sightings diary, that gives them some order. They can think, well, I like lists, so I can do that. I can start making a list of all the different animals or birds that I see. So that's a first step, and that's what I think you have to do, is kind of get people with their existing interests to branch out a little bit into the nature side of those existing interests. Also, bringing in the Earth's elements. There are 4 elements. There is a 5th element, which is ethereal. Can never say that. But we're going to concentrate on the earth, fire, water, and air. So by bringing in nature's elements into your everyday life, that's another way of connecting and engaging with nature. So with earth, gardening is an obvious one, conservation, cooking, because you're using plants that have been grown in the earth, particularly if you can buy from someone who's grown them themselves. Clay work. So we have clay on our land, and dig it up and then get people to make things with it. You don't have to make a pot. You can make something, just squeezing it in your hands is connecting with the earth. And walking barefoot is something you probably have heard about already, but standing on the earth, on the bare earth with bare feet, is a really good way to connect with earth. And these things will infiltrate into your life. They're very simple things to do, but they will begin to start this turning of your brain into thinking about ways in which to connect with nature. And once you've done it, then you realize the effect that it has on your life, then that's when that little seed starts to grow. And then it's a little journey that your clients go down. So they start doing a little bit more and a little bit more, but it is these first steps. And for fire, building a fire, actually making a fire, sitting around a campfire, everybody likes to sort of sit and stare into the flames, don't they? Cooking on fire, blacksmithing. Again, if you were to watch a blacksmith do his skill, you wouldn't necessarily realize that you were connecting with nature, but the fire is nature. So you are, and it's that little seed that we're trying to grow. Water, wild water swimming, having a bath or shower. So if you have clients that feel depressed or anxious, then having a shower, the element of water washing over their body, can help them to snap them out of times when they're feeling in crisis. Water ceremonies, so using water as a ceremony, having a little fire with a bowl of water and blessing the water, putting some essential oils in, rose petals, having time to meditate with that within that ceremony, and connecting with the element of water is really helpful, and again a way of connecting with nature. And cold water therapy, if anybody feels like jumping in ice baths. Air, so meditation and breath work, bringing the air into your bodies, is a really good way of connecting. I think you have to be mindful when you're doing it, so you have to kind of think, okay, I'm connecting with air. If you're just doing these things, they could easily just wash you by, but I mean, obviously you're still connecting with those elements, but to actually name it and say I'm connecting with air, is where the beauty happens and the magic happens. Cloud watching, using incense, or because you can see the the smoke rising, and again connecting with the element of air and feeling the wind on your face and your body. I think there's nothing better than standing on a hill. Not many in Norfolk, I agree, but standing on a hill and feeling the wind, feeling the power of the element of air blowing into your face and your hair is just a way to make you feel really alive. And again, just connecting and grounding in on those elements. Thank you. So we're going to look at engagement, just a list basically of things that can help you or your clients to engage with nature. I've already mentioned keeping a sightings diary. A game that we play with our children that come to some of our events are what animal, which is what animal. We stand in a circle and check in with them, and we'll say, what animal are you feeling like today? And we do it in the morning, and then we do it in the afternoon just before they go home. It's a full day event. And so they're thinking about an animal that they can connect with. And say, for example, they're feeling cheeky, they'll say a monkey. Or if they're feeling like rolling up, feeling a little bit shy, they'll say, I feel like a hedgehog. We had a lot of hedgehogs yesterday. And by the end of the day, they might then be feeling like a bird. So they feel free, that they can fly off. So they're playing a game, they're using their imagination, but they're also connecting with nature because they're thinking of the animals, which is creating this sort of cycle of using nature in their everyday speech and connecting with animals. Building a fire and cooking on a fire is a really good way. Previously mentioned that. Making stuff, so making things out of wood, weaving with basket weaving, foraging, and then making things like herbal tinctures or anything that you can find around your garden or in your forest, you can make things out of. So with nettles, for example, you can make nettle soup and cordage, and which is rope. But you're making something, so it's for the creatives. You're making something, but you are actually physically connecting with nature through a creative activity, which is is my kind of number one go-to method of helping people to connect with or to engage, with nature, is by giving them something to make. And that's quite entry level, really. But you can literally see the light go on in their eyes when they make something. We made hawthorn tinctures in May it was, and so basically just getting hawthorn blossom, cutting it up into little pieces and putting it into vodka, and then leaving it for a few weeks to infuse. And there were women there who didn't normally engage with nature, but they were absolutely loving it. And at the end of it, they were like, what other things can we do? What other things can we make out? What other tinctures and things can we make? So it just literally lights a little spark in people. And it's like I said, entry level. So people don't have to really, I think sometimes people think that they have to work really hard at engaging with nature, but it's, like I said, it's who we are, isn't it? Using charts and counting, so obviously counting for young children or children with special educational needs can count. So how many ducks did you see today, or how many robins did you see today? And charts for people who like charts and numbers. Walking and running is very easy. You're going to be out in nature unless you're on a treadmill, but that's a really good way of engaging. And also saying, stop halfway, take a look around, see what's around you, name it, name 5 things you can see, name 5 things you can smell, name 5 things you can hear. Reminisce about nature. So for people suffering from Alzheimer's, etc., thinking about trips they had out in nature as a child or as a young person really helps to kind of bring them back into their bodies and ground them. And reminiscing. Everyone's got a story about nature, haven't they? Walking in the forest with their grandma or something like that. It's a really good way of helping people to reconnect and re-engage with nature. Eating, so jams and vodkas, even things like boutique restaurants or taster menus, they often have foraging items, or sorry, foraged items in their menus, which this engagement thing is all about igniting that spark. So if you didn't normally engage with nature but went out for a nice meal, and within the meal there was something like I've said nettles already, haven't I? Say there was borage flowers decorating the meal, and you asked, oh, what's this flower? That could then ignite an interest in, oh, I wonder what other flowers I can eat. Have your meetings outside. So if you generally have meetings in boardrooms and things like that, suggest taking your meetings outside, even if it's just outside your office block, or thinking outside the box. Go and have your meeting in the forest. You know, who wouldn't want to do that? I know I would. Perhaps I'm just weird. And connection. So engagement, as I said, is different to connection. Connection is where you really feel it. And that's why I asked you what you thought connection felt like. When you actually feel like there's some change inside you. So it's not just, you're not just sitting there in this experience or having this experience. Something is actually working inside and you're actually changing inside. So within events, so yeah, you know, we have a lot of people within this group who do some lovely activities, like Katie, who does the wild oak wreaths and things like that. So someone's actually doing an activity with nature, but they are really connecting and really kind of being taken on a journey with those with nature. Meditate. So if you're sitting in nature and meditating, you will struggle not to connect with nature in that in those circumstances. Talk to plants and trees. So it's a two-way street as far as I'm concerned. I'll talk to trees and they talk back. And unless you've done that, you probably think I'm bonkers, but there is definitely communication between plants and trees and humans. And particularly on my land where I go, the trees and the plants know me there, and I do feel like they hold me. And yeah, it's a conversation we're having with nature. We are nature, as the next thing goes. Animals are nature, and we are animals, so we are nature. We're not separate. Animals aren't any less than us. Trees aren't any less than us. We are all nature. It's just that we feel that we've risen ourselves above this, but we're not. We're all on the same planet together. So sparking an interest and then delving deeper, and that's what we want to the crux of this is find out what your customers or your clients' interests are, and then see if you can take a deeper delve, but bring that activity into nature. Gardening, I think you have to have an ongoing connection if you're a gardener, because you have to connect with the plants to know where they're at in their growing journey, and then when you're ready to harvest. So that goes without saying, I think. And wild swimming, I think being in water, you are enveloped in the beautiful cold water, and you like I said about the meditation, you would struggle not to connect with nature if you do wild swimming. Just it's a beautiful experience. And I've put age in red there because obviously all these are age dependent. You'll know what works for your age and your age group. So yeah, the question, remember, what does it feel like to connect? To engage people with nature without, this is the summary, sorry, to engage people with nature without them realizing you have to tap into a pre-existing interest or hobby and expand that by bringing in the elements of nature. Once people begin to realize the soothing properties of nature, they will know where to turn when they need comforting or distracting. So it's lighting the touch, lighting it an ignition, and then they should be able to fly. I mean, you'd have to infill a few other ideas, but I think we just need to show people how good it is for them, and then once they find that truth, then they should be able to continue with their journey. And this is a photograph of us doing yoga underneath one of the oak trees on the land, and you can see the mums are sitting and chatting, and the children are, some of them are still playing, some of them are doing yoga, but they're all engaging in nature there, because they're sitting under the oak tree and their feet are bare, so they're connecting with the earth. Any questions? There's my name and my email address and my website address. And thank you for listening. I hope I haven't spoken too fast. I have no idea how much time I've used.
That's lovely, Tabitha. Many thanks. Very, very interesting indeed. Yeah, time for questions. I'll pick up one, if I may, straight away, which is this notion of connection being different from engagement, which I think is critical here, isn't it? And
yeah,
I
definitely.
don't know whether you're familiar with the work of Miles Richardson at the University of Derby.
No, I'm not. No.
He gets into this in a quite a deep way, and he uses the phrase "moments, not minutes." You know, you can be out and walking around a park, for example. You could be there for half an hour, but it doesn't really mean anything unless you really start to engage in the way that you've described, connecting. You know, looking at a tree blowing in the wind, or listening to a bird singing, or whatever it might be. So that's, I think, very interesting. And I see someone's put in the chat, Miles Richardson's recent book called Reconnection goes into this in a lot more detail, and I'd certainly recommend that. It's a really, really brilliant read, I think, around the sort of area that you've touched on. Can we delve a little bit deeper? Because I suppose what do we mean by connection? I guess it's combinations of different things. It's about emotions. It's about the sense of perhaps wonder. It's about admiring beauty. And a whole host of other things, but
belonging.
Sorry,
belonging.
Absolutely, yes. Connecting and being part of it. What I mean, your own experience. What sort of things? What sort of feelings, I suppose, does connection really evoke or describe?
Yeah, I think, like I said, just say belonging. I think you know, in this crazy world of transience, where people are in and out of our lives, and a lot of stuff is on the internet, social media, that sort of thing. There's we have friends on social media, don't we? But are they really friends, or are they just people that we know on social media?
Yeah.
And so when I really connect with somebody, you know, because you do connect with nature, but ultimately we want to connect with all beings. So humans are part of that. And so when you're with people who do the same thing, you know, who know the value of connecting in nature, then that creates a full circle, really, because you've connected with nature, but you're also connecting with other human beings. But the feeling I get, to answer your question, the feeling I get is the sense of belonging. I feel it in my soul. So it's a feeling of just reciprocal love. And also I see you. I don't know what that would be. I see you. So it's like when I'm with my trees, I see them. You know, I see what they're doing. I see how they're providing us with fruit, or they're providing us with shade, or they're providing us with even just oxygen. Or do they breathe out carbon dioxide? I should know that. But they're providing us with life, aren't they?
Yeah.
And bees and rabbits, and you know, everything that I see hopping around on the land or buzzing around on the land, it's just a I see you moment. It's a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important as well to kind of to remind ourselves that we are just part of this. This isn't our planet. You know, a lot of people are like, our planet, but you know, we are just part of this, and it's a respect of the animals, and a respect of what people are doing, or not people, sorry, plants and animals, and everything is doing within this whole crazy thing that we call planet Earth.
Yeah.
I think when you realize that, and you connect with that you are just part of this, then you can feel it in your soul. That's all I can describe it as. You just feel this kindred spiritness.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, you make a couple of very important points there as well. I think this notion that, or not a notion, I mean, it's a fundamental of life, isn't it? That we are part of nature. We are not separate from it. We are not we're not there to dominate and exploit it. It's really a fundamental rethink that we need of our position, if you like, in the world around us.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think was very interesting you mentioned, and it was in your presentation as well, was about the social value that you can get from connecting with nature, with other people. There's that sort of, socialization. I'm for example, I volunteer at Blickling Hall in the gardening team, and whilst it's great doing the sort of the physical activities and feeling rewarded for what you do there, a lot of the benefit is actually being with a group of people who you can talk to along the way. So
Yeah, totally.
Doing things together, I think, is very important as well.
Yeah, totally. And going back to,
yeah,
sorry, just going back to the fact that we are just part of nature. I mean, the things that are happening the last few years with the fires and the floods and things like that, if that doesn't remind people that we are just humans on this planet and we're not in control of it, nothing will really, will it?
Yeah. Let's open this up. Anyone else any questions or observations or thoughts? So a few comments in the chat, which are very helpful. They're not really questions as such, but they're very helpful comments. Thank you, Natalie and Louise, particularly. Anyone want to put their hand up, either virtually or on screen? No? Well, I'll pick up another one, which was I'd be interested to know a little bit more about the people who come your way, Tabitha, and how they get to you. Do they come to you independently? Are they referred to you through sort of social prescribing or other routes like that?
It's a bit of both, really. We work with some charities that have groups of people that they need to hold activities for. So, for example, children and young people leaving care, or children and young people in care, come to us for days with and campovers and things as well. That's obviously they just the people there, service provider, key workers contact us separately to arrange things like that. But a lot of it's word of mouth, social media, unfortunately. But that's how everyone really connects with these sort of events. But yeah, I don't know really how I get the word out, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll do an event and 2 people turn up. So there's obviously work to be done in that area.
Yeah, I suppose I don't know how long you've been running, but I guess you've learned as you've gone along in terms of the sort of things that are popular and people really benefit from. And has that sort of helped you tailor what you do to a degree?
Yeah, it has. Yeah. So my idea of what I like to do isn't sometimes the same as the general public's idea. I picked up doing an under 5s group session thing recently, which I do enjoy it, but it's not really the way that I wanted my business to go. But the need was there. Norfolk County Council contacted me and asked me to do it, so I did it. But I think because this is our business and we're obviously trying to make a living from it, then you go in whichever way that you want to. I mean, we do have obviously we still stick to our focus on what our objectives are for the business, but you do kind of bend a little bit to what people want. But it evolves as well. We do women's circles and men's circles as well now. So we've been doing men's circles for just over a year, and that's really popular. And that's something that you sort of wouldn't think that men would want to do, sit in circle and talk, but they really do. They love it. There's one tonight, actually.
Do you have any connections with Men's Shed as an organisation? Because I think they're quite active over in your part of the county, aren't they?
Yeah. No, they're on my list of people to connect with. But yeah, it's because it's just me as well. It's kind of I need to have. I've got lots of plates spinning.
Jolly good. Anyone like to contribute anything from their own background? I know there's a few people here who are directly involved in this sort of work. I mean, Louise, you're here from the Forest Schools background, I know, and Natalie's here from the Wildlife Trust. Anything that either of you have heard that's sort of, I suppose, spurred any thoughts from your own reflections and so on? Louise? Good child.
Yeah.
Lovely.
got Lily Rowe here too today.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Tabitha. That was lovely to hear about your work. Something I'd like to just offer or think about is like you say the term nature. Sorry, the term nature connection is used a lot. 2 minutes, sweetheart. The term nature connection is used a lot, and you kind of highlighted the difference between nature engagement and nature connection, and I wondered whether you'd encountered barriers to that, or what I'm trying to articulate it. Often people don't understand connection until they've felt it. And so what I've noticed is it can be difficult to get people in. People think that going for a walk in nature is nature connection rather than nature engagement. And so then to try and sort of encourage people to go deeper into that state of connection can be quite tricky sometimes, because they're like, oh yeah, I go for a walk, I walk the dog every day kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just wondered to offer that out to Tabitha and the group about, how to kind of overcome barriers, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think that if because some of the people I work with wouldn't even go for a walk, so I think if they're in any way engaging with nature, then that's always a good thing. But obviously for it to get to the core of them and to actually start working more. But I mean, a walk out in the forest is lovely, isn't it? It does work. But we want to take them a little bit deeper if they're open to that. But that's when the thought of whether the idea of taking their interest and adding a little bit on each time comes in. So, well, maybe do you want to see if you can find something along your walk that you can use in, I mean, even just get picks, not pick wildflowers, but find some, I'm going to use nettles again because they are my favorite plant. Pick some nettles and have a go at making some cordage or something, or make some nettle soup. It's like little baby steps, just tagging on to that original engagement idea. And yeah, it's like it's almost like building blocks. So you're adding on a block each time, and sort of they're learning that they, obviously doing that extra activity was fun and did help them to engage and connect with nature more. But then it's like tagging a little bit onto that each time. So in the end, they're doing a lot more activities, but just giving them suggestions really of, or when you do go for a walk, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try, just stop on your walk and sit and have the five connections. I think that might be one of John Young's things. Yeah,
it could be the same area.
Yeah.
Can I just come in? I mean, the other thing that occurs to me, both of you speaking, is this fundamental disconnection, if you like, from nature that we have, generally speaking. And I mean, some of you may be aware that there's a project currently being developed by the local health service with the RSPB called Nature Prescriptions.
Yeah.
This is a project which the RSPB have run successfully, I think, in Scotland and Derbyshire. And it basically involves, it goes to the social prescribing route, involves giving someone effectively a monthly calendar of things that they might do in order to engage, shall we say, initially with nature. And I'm struck by the comments from Sarah Walker, who's the lady who's behind this, that she has had back from GPs and others, is that people often, if they're confronted with this idea of connecting with nature, almost feel as though they're being empowered or given permission to do something that is strange or they've not done before. And that just sort of underlines for me this fundamental barrier that I think a lot of us have, of saying, we live lives now that are increasingly online or on the screen, and all the other things that have been going on in the modern world to draw us back, if you like, from the sort of connections that we're talking about, actually makes it quite difficult for some people to realize that this is something we could and we should do. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. It's terrifying, really, how disconnected we have become to nature. Because I'm part of that RSPB thing, and yeah, we were surprised at how basic it was. You know, step outside your back door and look for a blade of grass or something like that. And that's, you know, it's difficult for people who engage with nature a lot to kind of remember, but it's important to remember that some people really do not connect with nature or even engage with nature at all. But I mean, even like people who live in high-rise flats, they could open a window or stand out on their balcony and engage in air, couldn't they? I mean, they're right up there, and do some sort of a breathing technique. It's just getting people, it's awareness, I think, trying to, you know, let people know that these things will help you, and they're so easy to access. They're not, it's not rocket science, is it? But it's in a busy day,
The opposite.
and people are busy. Yeah. In a busy day, it's hard. It's, again, I was thinking earlier actually what I'd say, how I'd kind of put it into a nutshell, but getting people to engage or connect with nature is a little bit like getting people to exercise, isn't it? Nobody really wants to do it, but once they've done it, they realize how good it is for them.
Yeah. So steps along a path is really the way you've described it, I think, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add, Natalie, from the Wildlife Trust point of view? I mean, I know we've talked before about nature connection, and am I right in thinking that this is an increasingly important part of what you're trying to do?
Yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah, thanks, Nigel. Sorry, I haven't got my camera on because I'm on a computer for no camera today. Yeah, I think I've been at the Trust for a year now, and I think we're very much moving not away from obviously our managing and looking after our nature reserves, because that's always going to be core of what we've done, but we're definitely moving much more towards nature connection and enabling opportunities for nature connection. And so a big part of my job at the moment is exploring, we've kind of got three main areas that we're hoping to develop, or we are developing over the next 3 years. One is our youth engagement, so really offering opportunities to connect young people to nature. And the second one is the health and wellbeing agenda, which is obviously this is really relevant for and why I'm here, and it's been really interesting, so thank you. And the third one is urban nature, and recognising obviously in terms of deprivation and underserved audiences, many of those live in our urban areas. So with our new Sweetbriar Marshes Reserve that we've just purchased in Norwich, that's offering lots of opportunities for us to engage with the communities around there. And I think I'm really interested as well about what you've said about using the term nature connection, because I met with someone from the central team at the Wildlife Trust this week, who's the lead person for health and wellbeing there. And he said to me, whatever you do when you go out to talk to people about working in partnership or getting funding, don't use the term nature connection unless they're already, you know, working within that field. It's fine to talk about it with you lot, but because he said people don't understand it, or they think it's a kind of hippie phrase that, you know, and you've got to talk about it in terms of what the results are from nature connection rather than using that term, which I thought was quite interesting. So yeah, just nothing particularly interesting to add to the conversation apart from saying that yeah, we're really exploring this area and really interested in any kind of partnerships and hearing from what other people are doing. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I suppose again, would it be fair to say that there's an increasing emphasis on what you might call doorstep nature, literally what,
yeah,
looking
definitely.
outside what's in your garden if you've got one, or in your balcony window box, or you know, in the street nearby. It's making people aware of those opportunities as well. Yeah,
definitely, because I think like you've just touched on a minute ago that actually us saying to people, oh, you know, you need to get out in nature, you need to go for a walk, you need to engage, you know, and connect. When people, you know, for some people who are literally working every hour of the day to pay their bills and to feed their children or whatever, you know, saying that to somebody, it's kind of, you can imagine them laughing in your face and saying, oh, I haven't got time for that. I've got far more important things to do. So I think, like you say, it's people don't realise the benefits until they've had the opportunity to do it. So I suppose we're really looking at, like you've touched on, those really easy steps and helping people to do it without having to commit to going anywhere or to travelling or to spending money. So yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Thanks, Natalie. Yeah. Anyone else want to come in at this point? Pete, over to you.
Well, I was just going to say briefly, I'm just struck by what Natalie was saying and what you were suggesting about, particularly about urban nature. It seems to me that part of the issue, or part of the difference between engagement and connection, is about mindfulness. Is I suppose about almost the internal conversations you have with yourself as you pass things. That if you're in an urban environment and the conversation you're having is, oh God, I've got to get home, I've got to get tea on, I've got to sort the kids out when I get, and I've got to do that. Then I suppose your experience of whatever nature you're observing or passing or being part of is different to if the question you're asking yourself or the conversation you're having internally is, oh, look at that clump of grass over there, or look at that hogweed that's growing on that bit of scrap ground, or you know, look at that tree over there, it's got some nice leaves to look at, or you know, those sorts of things. I suppose it's about promoting people's internal conversations to go down slightly different routes. And that in a sense, you know, that needs to be done probably in quite a low level way. And some good examples of I think of things that have work or make you think differently are things like information boards and that sort of thing, which just gives you a little bit of information about what's around you. Yeah. You perhaps start to think about it in a different way or engage with it in a different way. And that begins to, I suppose, that create that feeling of comfort, that feeling of interest, that feeling of being part of something that perhaps doesn't exist if you're just beetling along and concentrating on your problems and your questions.
Yeah, no, good point, Pete. I think it nudges the word that comes to mind.
Yeah,
it's about nudging people in that direction, isn't it? And just as another example, I've been involved in developing a new walking trail in Norfolk, which some of you may have heard of, called the 10 Towers Trail, which connects 10 churches near where I live together with a sort of 15-mile walking trail. And one of the things we introduced, and I have to say it was partly because we had a spare space on the leaflet, was an I Spy section. You know, here's half a dozen things to look out for. Have you seen a buzzard? Have you seen any crows? Have you crossed a stream on a wobbly bridge? Those sorts of nudges that perhaps help people observe, engage, and maybe ultimately connect with things that they wouldn't otherwise do. Good. Anything else, anyone, before we close? Tab, are there any closing remarks you'd like to make, given what you've heard?
Yeah, I think the two last comments that were said is really a good point, actually. And I think but then, like you said, Pete, about the mindfulness around it, I think there's always time, isn't there? And it you know, we're not going to be working. We have to get from one place to another, and during that journey, like you say, if you see something, and it just reminded me of, because I've built up my knowledge of different things to forage and different plants and that sort of thing. And I was in the centre of Wisbech the other day getting my car fixed, and whilst it was being fixed, I stood outside and saw some random mugwort growing in a real urban, it was just like a big patch of concrete. And I was instantly, I was like, oh, hello, mugwort. What are you doing? What are you doing growing right in the middle here? Because I'm used to seeing it in, out in the countryside, and there it was. But it was just because I feel a connection to that plant. It was like I'd seen an old friend. Do you know what I mean? But I am beginning to think I'm a little bit strange and special, to be honest.
Definitely special, not strange. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And again, thank you very much for what you've done today, which I think has been very stimulating. And I think it underlines some important messages for us going forward in terms of promoting nature connection,
yes,
as opposed to engagement. Moments, minutes, that's the phrase I think that sticks with me.
Yeah.
So well, as I said at the beginning, we've done a recording of this, which I'll switch off in a moment. I will be circulating to everyone who registered a link to the recording, and also, if it's okay, Natalie, Tabitha, I'll send a copy of your slides around as well, for people to look at in case they want to refer to those. Good. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much again indeed. As I said, this is part of a longer festival. Please take a look at our website, ngcn.uk, and you can see the other great events that are going on in the next 10 days or so. Got a couple more lunch and learn sessions next week, which you might be interested in signing up for. But for now, I'll stop recording and say thank you very much for coming along.